Hey guys, welcome back to the next video, the special surprise that I've been saving for you. So, today, I'm gonna be giving you a really quick, well not really quick, we're gonna take our time of course, but I'm gonna give you let's say an overview of the MARMOSET course. And not only am I going to give you the overview, I'm actually going to be doing a new original exercise that's not on the video file. So think of this as a bonus. So if you haven't gotten the MARMOSET course, then take a look at this, see how we explain things, make sure that you understand what we're doing. And if you already bought the course, then this is just an extra lesson. And since this is an extra lesson, I want to do a little bit of an activity with you guys. So let's see if we can achieve this goal. So if I take a look at our recent numbers, we're at 16,600 subscribers. So we're gonna have a special goal today. First, this is gonna be a two-part goal. So the first goal is if we get to 500 likes, which I know you guys can do it because I've seen the numbers and I know we can get there. Not all of our videos get there, and I know we're a small community still, but we're growing, and I want you to help me get to 500 likes. So if this video gets 500 likes, I will give you this file. I will give you this model so that you too can practice, so that you too can do the activity and can create this very nice Majoras mask. Now, if we get to, or rather, when we get to 17,000 subscribers, we're 400 subscribers away from that number. When we get there, I will be doing an animation of the mask inside of Marmoset as well. So we're only going to be covering textures and lighting in this particular video. But if we get, or rather, when we get to 17,000, I will show you the animation. We're going to do this very nice animation where the mask just like comes into camera and stuff. So if you guys want to see that, help me, help us get there, help us grow, help Nexttut get to the next level as well in the YouTube community. So there we go. So as you can see, we're going to be doing the Majoras mask, and I think the Majoras mask is a great example to showcase the power of a Marmoset, especially for those of you that are not super familiar with Substance, for instance, or with ZBrush even. We can get some very nice details and effects inside of Marmoset without that much of a problem. So as you can see, what we have here is this mask, and it's a wooden mask made out of like different elements, right? So what I'm going to do here is, well, actually you can see that this object already has UVs. It's a very nicely set up set of UVs. However, we do have a couple of shells that are inverted. This red colors that you see here, that's Maya telling me, hey guy, or hey Abraham, these elements are flipped. So I'm just going to go into modify and we're going to flip them. And now that the elements are all flipped, I'm just going to say modify layout, and that should lay out everything in my scene very nicely. They do seem to be a little bit bigger. There we go. So I'm going to be exporting this object. And as you can see, this is I would say, almost game ready object for like a next gen Zelda. I wouldn't think this is a bad number. We're at 10,000 triangles. So this is very useful. And one thing I am definitely going to do is I'm actually going to combine the whole object. So I'm going to combine the whole object into a single piece so that we can work with everything in a single element. And we're just going to call this Majoras mask. We want to combine the whole object because this object is not something that's going to be deformed. Like, we're not going to be splitting it into different pieces or anything. So this is what we have. So I'm going to export the selection. And of course, we're going to go to our Nexttut live. We haven't gone into this one in a while, right? So let's go here into the assets. Let's create a new one. And let's call this a Majoras mask. And we're going to export here. And you can export either side OBJ or from FBX. I personally like FBX a little bit more because it's a more complete element, but that's it. Inside of Marmoset, it's super easy to import something. You're just going to go into File, Import Model, and you're just going to hit whatever you want to import. I'm actually working on a nice project. Maybe I'll show it to you later, guys. I didn't sign an NDA. It's not like super private, but I want to finish it first before I show you. And I'm using Marmoset. I'm going to be using Marmoset for the render because it's just faster. So I'm going to go here to the Majoras mask and we're just going to export. And there we go. So boom, our Majoras mask is right here. Now, I want to show you, as I mentioned, the whole pipeline. We're going to see a little bit of lights. We're going to see a little bit of the bakes. We're going to see a little bit of texturing as well. And hopefully we're going to get a very nice result. The tutorial, by the way, is going to be a little bit longer than usual. It's not going to be 15 or 20 minutes. It's going to be like a mini masterclass or like a mini module from the series. So I have on this other screen my Majoras mask, what's the word? Reference to see the colors and stuff, and in some of them it seems to be like solid colors. I'm going to be using this one right here. as a reference. So as you can see on the mask itself, everything is pretty much solid colors, and then other elements are like there's a little bit of a gradient on the spikes, right? So I'm gonna keep this on the side so that I can see what I'm doing. And the first thing I need to do is I need to decide whether I'm gonna be using subdivision method, where I'm gonna smooth the whole thing into like another level, or if I'm gonna be using bakes. And I think I'm gonna be using bakes because of course I wanna show you the power of bakes. So we're gonna use this little thing called a bake project right here, click. And on this project, I'm just gonna call this Majoras. And as you can see, we have a high and a low. For those of you that are unaware of how baking works, what happens is you basically take your high poly and you bake that down. You export that information into a texture file that's gonna save the smoothness of the object, so that everything works in a better way. And that way, the low poly, which is the target of the bake, will look better without actually having the extra geometry. In this case, we don't have a lot of things, but I do need to bake a couple of maps that are gonna allow Marmoset to create some very nice effects once we get into texture. So I'm going to take the Majoras mask here, and I'm going to bring this into the low section, and I'm going to say Control D to duplicate this because I want to have two of them. Actually, I just need the little cube, which is the object. I don't need the group. So I'm going to have one Majoras mask on the high poly, and this one I'm actually going to subdivide. And I'm going to subdivide, let's say, twice, so that we have a very, very smooth definition here. Now, we're not seeing this because it's hidden. And now I just need to go here into the bake group, in the baker. I need to select where I want my bakes to go, which is going exactly where I want. So I'm just going to call this Majoras mask bakes. And down here, I need to select which maps I want to bake. Usually, you only bake the normal map because that's the most common bake that you do. However, inside of Marmoset, as in other softwares as well, we have the option to export this other maps, which are the normals, the curvature, the ambient occlusion, and the material ID. We don't have any material ID right now, so we don't need it really. But the curvature and the ambient occlusions are going to be really helpful because they're going to create black and white masks or maps that are going to tell our objects where like the crevices and the concave and convex shapes are. And we're going to be using something called, I think they call them instigators, or it's like procedural noise. It's similar to the generators from Substance, but they have a different name. I always mix them up. So in here, I'm just going to hit the button here, bake, and there we go. We're just going to wait. The bake is going to happen, and as soon as it happens, you're going to see that my element right here is going to change slightly. I'm going to hit this button here, which is preview, and as you can see, the preview will allow me to see a little bit of a very nice bake. Look at that. Look at those like very nice shadows that we get in between the elements. That's exactly what we're going for, and you can see that it looks a little bit smoother, even though it's not smoothing. Like we haven't smoothed this low poly. We just make it look like it's smooth. Now we're going to connect this texture files. Give me just 1 second. Sorry about that, got the message, and sometimes I need to check the messages because with a little baby, it could be an emergency, but no, it was just a normal message. So as you can see here, the ambient occlusion is now being applied to the mesh, and it looks really, really, really good. Now, before we jump onto the textures, or actually no, let's jump onto the textures first, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna do the light setup and all of the render setup. So in order for us to do the textures, we now need to bring our, or we now need to connect our baking project to the texture project, which is another sort of module here inside of Marmoset. So down here on the texture project link, we're just going to create a new project, and this is going to create a new bake, which as you can see, it says Majoras mask bakes, which is the number that I gave it. And this texture project now has assigned the the textures that we normally use, the curvature, normal object, and ambient occlusion, so that when we jump onto the texture panel, we can model it. Now, if all of this that I'm doing sounds like super complicated, or you've never done this before, don't worry. As I've mentioned, this is a sort of like a summary of all of the Marmoset things. We do have like very simple and easy to follow steps on the tutorial, so make sure to check it down if this is something that's looking good so far. So one of the cool things about Marmoset 4, and I personally think it's a great thing, I don't think I'm going to be using it as much in my pipeline because I know how to use other softwares, and there are other tools that can get a very nice job done as well. But it's a very, very powerful tool, is the texture tab. So they are now introducing the option for us to texture in a very similar way in how we texture inside of Substance Painter. So we texture with something called PBR workflow. So in the 3D world, the PBR workflow is something that has been gaining a lot more traction from the past like 6 or 7 years. When I first started studying 3D 10 years ago, this was not common. Like, people didn't know about this. I didn't know about it. It wasn't until my final years in school where this kind of like information started to come out, and everyone was working with this sort of thing. And the PBR workflow, what it intends to do is it intends to create a material that will look good no matter the lighting condition. So it's called PBR because it means physically based render. So the material will react physically correct to any sort of light. So you could be in an underground scene, in sunset, you can be inside of a castle, you can be in space. Like, it doesn't matter where you place your material, your texture object, you are gonna have like proper shading, proper physical interactions with the elements. And there's two main ones. We also go over this like very in depth in the course. There's the metallic roughness and the specular glossiness. The metallic roughness is a little bit more artist friendly, so that's the one that we're gonna be using right now. So if we jump here into the texture tab, you're gonna see that our layout changed, and that means that we're gonna be able to start working on a little bit more things. So on this side, we're gonna have our 3D view, and on this side, we're gonna have our 2D view, which is our UV. So we can also paint on the UV, which is very, very cool. Down here, we have a lot of materials, and when you buy, or I believe rent, Marmoset 4, you have access to all of the materials. So there's 478 materials, which are great. I'm not sure if you can buy more. I haven't gotten, like, I haven't had the need to buy anymore, but I'm pretty sure there should be packages and stuff that you can download. Now, I'm gonna look here for a wood material, and you're gonna see that we have a lot of wood materials. And I want to look for a wood material that has a little bit of a grain, right? Like, I want the texture of wood to be visible on the character. So I'm gonna see like this one, like pine cracked. Okay, so that actually looks very good. So when you see this little cloud icon, that means that right now it's stored on the cloud. If you just double click, you're gonna download it. And now if I go here into the layers, the only thing I need to do is drag this, drop it into the layers, and boom, our object has a new material assigned to it. Now, here's a little thing. One thing that I'm noticing here is that my UV is not properly laid out. So as you can see, the veins of the wood are not going in the direction that I might want, which could be simply solved with by using a triplanar projection. So if I use a triplanar projection, as you can see, instead of having the texture follow the side of the UVs or the direction of the UVs, it's actually just like getting a snapshot and just plastering the object with like a front view of the element or like a back view of the element. You might see a couple of like blending in certain areas, like here, like this seam right there, but it's not that bad, right? Like it doesn't look half bad. So we can use that one. I don't think we can do any other, maybe like a planar, like maybe just a planar might be a little bit better. And what I'm gonna try to do here is I'm gonna rotate this texture around 90 degrees so that the vein of the wood is going in the best possible way. Now you can see that some of the spikes don't have the like proper wood grain. That could be solved by, of course, moving and organizing my UVs in a better way. But look at this, like this thing right here looks really, really nice, right? Like the effect of the cracked wood, I think, looks very, very nice. Now, if the vein's a little bit too harsh, we can of course tile this. So let's say 2 tiles. And as you can see, the vein's gonna be smaller, which based on my reference, it looks like this is roughly the scale that we're going for. Not that much. I'm not that worried about this guys over here. Now we can start thinking about the paint. Like a lot of you would be like, okay, yeah, this looks cool, but how can we add paint on top of this? Well, very simple. You can either create a new layer or look for a paint layer here that's gonna give you like some sort of interesting effect. So let's see, do we want maybe this paint cracked? Might look cool. So I'm just gonna double click this to download it. And I'm just gonna drag and drop here on top. Now when I drag and drop this, yeah, that looks good. It's a little bit big, so let's tile this a little bit more. So let's do like 4 tiles. There we go, that looks way, way better. And the only thing that I'm seeing is that we are overriding our paint cracked effect, which is not what we want. So I know that eventually everything is gonna be painted, so why not just bring this layer up right here? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the channels, the active channels, and I'm not gonna use any albedo channel or roughness. I'm just gonna use the normal map. So I just wanna bring the veins of the wood. So now it looks like the paint, or in this case the wood, is sitting on top of the paint, but we get a very nice effect. Now let's go back to the paint, and you're gonna see that we're gonna be able to change things inside of our elements. For instance, here we can change the color, and I do believe we have a picker. Do we have a picker here? I think we can only pick from these images. So I'm just gonna go for this like dark purple that the mask has, which is like the base on the back. So something like this. Now you're gonna see that the chip paint also gets some hue changes, which I mean it's fine. It's not gonna be the end of the day. And there we go. We have a very nice a base for like the general mask over here. So I'm gonna hit OK, and there we go. Now I'm gonna add a new layer. So I'm gonna, instead of adding a new material layer, because we don't need another material layer, we only need to paint the color of the layer that we're working on, right? So I'm gonna add this thing called a paint layer. And the paint layer, as the name implies, will allow me to paint on top of the thing. Now, I only want to paint with certain materials. Like, I want to paint on the exact same sort of like color and properties as the paint cracked. So what you can do is you can drag this material here, and we're going to be painting with this material. And if we change the color, let's go now for like the sort of like pinkish, like reddish pinkish thing, something like this. Now, when I paint, as you can see here, oh, actually, let's go a little bit redder like this. There we go. Okay. When I paint, I'm going to be painting this red color on top of the whole thing. And it's going to look very similar to what we had on the other side. Now, you can see here that I'm having a little bit of an issue because I'm trying to paint here, but I'm actually painting this little stripe right there. And I don't want to do that. One very cool thing about Marmoset is you can actually go here into the tool settings right here, which is the brush. And there's this alignment, and I'm going to change this to UV. So now, when I'm painting on UV, unless I touch that area, I'm only going to be painting on the UV that it's active. So if I'm very careful here and I do not cross the line, I should be able to very nicely paint only the things that I want to paint. So look at how nice this color starts to look. I think I'm also going to tile this. I think we tiled this 4 times, right? Oh, yeah, okay, so this is a problem. I'm just going to have to like go over it again so that we get this very nice tile. There we go. Now, these things can also blend together, so I can add like a multiply layer, which I don't think it doesn't look half bad. A little bit lighter, so the multiply is not as intense. And yeah, look at this. So in a very fast way, in a very like I would say in a very interactive way, I'm gonna be able to paint. I'm gonna make my brush bigger just so it's a little bit easier. See how it can very easily paint beneath everything. Now just be very careful not to touch any other object, and you're gonna be able to paint inside of the objects without see that, like I touched that there, and of course it projected some of the paint on top of it. Now I'm not so worried because we're gonna be painting on top of those guys as well, but just if you want to be super clean on this. Now, as you can see, this definitely takes a little bit of time. Now I do believe we have we can change the size. For instance, if you press Control and right click, you're gonna make the brush bigger. So if you just like do this, you should be able to move a little bit faster. There we go. Now I do believe we can select where is it? UV island. So we can select this guy right here, and that way we're masking. And when we mask, now when we paint, I'm not going to be worried about painting anything that we're not selecting because we just selected that specific mask. If you press your letter X, or actually I would need to go to the eraser to erase. So be very careful in this case not to go over the line. So very similar to when we were kids, we're just painting on top of the line. Again, we can erase, of course we can erase. If we mess this up, we can definitely erase, but it's better not to, right? The less extra work we can have, the better it's gonna be for us. There we go. So since this selection is active, as you can see, we can just paint on the actual red side, and yeah, everything looks good. So now I'm gonna go to my eraser, and it's just a matter of very slowly erasing any extra paint, because remember, this is a paint layer. It's different from the fill layer, because the fill layer, as the name implies, fills the whole layer with whatever material you're adding, which by the way we can also change, but in this case, this one right here will only paint the layer. And there we go. To deselect, just go back to object select and just click outside of it. And look at that. Like, we already have this very nice effect. Now I'm gonna do a fill layer. Let's say I wanna do a fill layer, for instance, for the spikes. And in this fill layer, I can actually change the property. So maybe I want the spikes to be a little bit more glossy. So I'm gonna grab a color here, like this yellow, so like mustard yellow color. It's a little bit brighter. Something like this. I like to go to the warm tones, so I'm gonna go like this. There we go. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna add a mask, and I'm gonna add a paint mask black. So this is gonna hide everything. I'm gonna select my objects, all of this. You can shift and click. Oh, click. Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3. My mouse is bugging out. I think I'm gonna have to buy a new one because it's giving me double clicks. And now on the paints, on this mask that we just created, we can paint so that only the things that are masked on that particular layer are being filled by this new layer that we're just creating. So we're gonna be able to have this very, very nice fill right here. Let's go on the back, of course. There we go. And this one right here. And that's it. We go back here, we just go out of the selection, and there we go. I'm even gonna let a little bit of that like purple go there, like having a little bit of errors here and there. I don't think it's a bad idea. And then now I can say, hey, you know what? Maybe this layer, I don't want roughness to be affecting this. I just want, or no, we say we did want roughness, right? And down here, we can control how much roughness we actually want. If we want to make those spikes like really, really shiny or not as shiny, we can control, because like opposite to a paint layer, we can actually change how this fill layer behaves because it's filling the whole element right here. So let's go with another layer. I'm gonna go another fill layer. This one, I'm gonna keep the same sort of effect. So I'm just gonna use a dark color, a black color. There we go. I'm gonna go back to object selection. Let's select the little like loops right here because we're definitely gonna be using them. And I'm gonna go back to my. I'm gonna actually have to add a paint mask black, and on the brush, we're of course gonna paint those guys right there. Very, very fast because we're selecting them, so super easy to do. And there we go. We'll just go here, there, and there we go. So as you can see, we have the basis of our mask. It's looking very, very nice. We're missing the eyes, but the eyes actually have a little bit more gradient. It's this sort of like a very bright red going into an orange. So I'm actually gonna be doing those as a separate layer, and they actually, I mean, on some reference, they do have this sort of wood grain, and in others, they don't. So let's go to that one. Let's do that paint layer. So I'm going to go to the paint layer, and I'm going to go to my brushes, because right now, if I go to the brushes here, you're going to see that we also have a lot of brushes that we can use. And I want to use a very soft brush. Let me see if I can find one here. No, it doesn't seem to be one. So I'm going to decrease the hardness here to get a very soft brush. And I only want to paint color. In this case, I just want to paint color. This layer is going to be only color. I'm actually going to rename it. I'm going to call this color, because I want the roughness to be the exact same as what we have down there. We're also going to select the object. So this object and this object right here. Go back into paint mode. And we need to start with like a very deep red. So on the albedo, we're going to select the deep red. So something like this. It's a little bit orangey. So something like this I think is fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the whole thing. So the whole thing with this I'm gonna make it a lot brighter. Oop. Because we definitely want the eyes to be like really, really intense. There we go. So we okay. By the way, you can use Wacom tablets. If you click on this little button right here, you can change this to pressure. I'm using a mouse right now, so no need at this moment, but you can do it. And now I'm gonna go to the yellows, and I'm gonna make my mouse smaller, so that we can, kind of like an airbrush, see that? Create this sort of like a very nice effect here on the elements. Look at that, beautiful, right? We get this very nice gradient that will be pretty much difficult to get in other ways. Now the inner side of the eye seems to be green, so I'm gonna again grab like a bright green color, something like this. Okay. And I'm gonna paint this area in. All of this to get this very nice gradient there. Do the same thing on this side. Look at that, beautiful. So this is one of the things that I love about the newest Marmoset, is the fact that you can do this. Otherwise, you would have to go into Substance and do a whole lot of other process. And in this case, it's super, super simple. Now this is gonna be like the inner eye here, red. Now, of course, if we were to go into Photoshop, for instance, we could add like this very creepy looking like eye texture. I mean, if you want to paint the texture, you're also welcome to do so. But as you can see, we get here a very nice effect. Look at that. So we have all of our primary colors ready. There's still a couple of things that we need to add, like some textures. But I'm gonna go to the spikes because I want to show you something here with the texture or with the brush. So I'm gonna select the spikes again so that we can only paint on this guys. And now that we've painted the spikes, oh, let's do it again. I had a script that fixed my mouse, but I don't have it with me yet right now. So now I see that the lowermost spikes, this one's right here, have this sort of like blue texture element. So one thing that we can do here is I can actually go and select, again, brushes that have a little bit more texture, like this, like charcoal thing. So if I double click this one, the charcoal element, and I just double click, and I select another color, let's go for this, it has like a deep blue first, something like this. I can paint, as you can see, this dark blue color pretty much everywhere. There we go. And it kind of blends, like it's kind of like a gradient. So we start with blue here, and then it kind of blends into like this green. So on the next spikes, oh, careful there. On the next spikes, it kind of had like this sort of green that as well bleeds into the next ones. So it's this sort of like green hue. There we go. And then we have like an orange one, like an orange red one. Okay, that goes into the last one, and again bleeds a little bit into that one. So it's kind of like this sort of like a rainbow color. Very cool, to be honest. On top, I don't see anything. It seems white, like a little bit of white. So I'm gonna go to the yellows and just desaturate it a little bit, just to get a little bit of texture in there, because I don't want them to be out of textures. And there we go. Like, take a look at this. Like, we started with nothing and we're already here. So I would say this is a very, very nice improvement. Oh, my back is killing me. I've been sitting, well, not sitting, working all day. But I'm here for you guys. Thank you for all of you who are also hanging out. How long has this video gone? 26 minutes. So yeah, we're a little bit longer than what we've been doing this past couple of weeks. So if you have been sticking around, then congratulations. You're about to find out one of the coolest things of all this element. But before that, I'm gonna add one more paint layer, and we need to add the little like icons and details that this thing has. So it has a white lines, like a couple of white lines, and it also has some other lines. So here I'm gonna deactivate the brush texture. I'm actually gonna just go back to my where is it? Brushes. I thought we had our like basic brush here. Let me. Oops, not that one. So we definitely don't want any brush texture, and we want the size to remain consistent. So size is consistent. There we go. Hardness. Yeah, we do want like a definitely hardness, opacity. So I'm just trying to see. No, I don't want to save that brush. I would like to go back to my old brush, but where is it? I can't find it. Huh, that's weird. Scene. Let me see if by resetting the brush right there. No, it did not change it. Whoop. Okay, that's fine. So let's go back here to the texture tab, texture bake, so that we get everything here. And yeah, so we want to create those nice lines, right? Going from the top all the way to the bottom. I'm actually gonna use, I think using like a grunge material might look interesting. So let's say another paint layer here, and this now is gonna be white. Okay, and I am gonna go. Give me just 1 second. Sorry, had to take care of a little message right there. But yeah, so now we're going to be painting the lines. Now, unfortunately, Marmoset at this time does not have a symmetry. So we're going to have to freehand this. Let me open this reference. They are, though, voting for this thing to be added into like a next patch. Although that does seem a little bit bad right now. Let me see. Can we change this? Here, let's do everything off. There we go. Yeah, that's way better. So it starts, I'm gonna find like a point here. So I know that it goes like really close to this line right here. So I'm gonna go really close here. And I think this kind of gives us a more natural, like painterly look. If you need, go do it in steps. That also helps. This is one of the cool things about Marmoset. It's an evolving tool, so there might be some new features that are going to be coming out in the next couple of months or with new revisions. I don't think they're going to do a Marmoset 5 like soon, so you guys should be safe to invest on this one because there's still things to improve. And these guys want, of course, to be a little bit of a competition to Substance. And I always say that competition in the 3D world, it's good because when one software does something really cool, then the other guys need to come up with something to kind of like emulate that sort of thing, right? So innovation brings, or sorry, competition brings innovation, and that's always good for us, the end user. So there we go, that's it. Now I'm definitely gonna lower the opacity. I wanted this to be like slightly faded, so that's not like in your face. Now here, we also have this sort of like line coming here. So like this, and then going on this side over here. And then on this side, it's very similar. I'm gonna try to keep the same sort of like curvature. There we go. And then there's another line that goes around this outer edge. Like this. You can see that this blob brush is giving me a very nice effect. I'm definitely gonna change this to UV as well, so that when I cross here, it is painting a little bit, but that's fine. I'm gonna try to be as close as possible. There we go. And it ends in this sort of like weird organic shape over here. There we go. Now on this side, we're gonna have something very similar. So here, just move all the way around, go really close to the line there, and we end up with this sort of like organic shape over there. There we go. So those are the white lines. Now we also have some like orange lines. So I'm gonna go back here. We're gonna go to the orange, and we have like this bright orange shapes on top here. So it's right about here. We have like a broad big triangle, and then there's another shape right here like this. It's a good like freehand practice as well. And then this like triangle here. Yeah, so last time I checked, which was mid September, people were asking for the symmetry feature, but it's still not on. There we go. Now we do have another sort of like rectangle here that goes from like this lower portion all the way up to about here. And all of this is kind of like filled with orange, and then there's like a black border on top. So I'm just gonna fill the whole thing with orange, and then on another layer I'll paint the black lines. Remember, if you mess up, just a matter of going back to the eraser and erasing the paint layer, because this is not a mask. This is a paint layer. So that means that we're gonna have to literally erase the thing. So there we go. I might keep the opacity a little bit more like up in this case, because I really want that like color to look nice. Let's go back to the paintbrush. We're still with the like orange color, and again, unfortunately, we're doing this sort of like going back and forth, and we're gonna have to like really eyeball this so that we get a very similar approach. Let's erase there a little bit. And again, as you can see, this sort of process, it takes time, guys. That's why sometimes we or I personally don't like to upload the whole process. I know some of you guys enjoy it, but unfortunately, the views don't reflect that. I would love to do like super long courses, 2-3 hours of just me working, but let's be honest, 2-3 hours, it's a little bit too much, right? Like no one really watches. Some of you might be even listening to this on a different tab. Hey, we're painting cool things here, guys. Check this out. You should come back and check it out. So yeah, that's why we usually don't do longer videos, because unless you're really focused on what on like following the tutorial or the exercise, people just don't do it. I don't do it. It's a little bit too much. So I try to take things in chunks of time. So there we go. We have the orange elements. It does seem like the inner side of the eyes is orange as well. So I'm actually gonna paint it orange here. I think this is gonna make it look a little bit better. Oh, careful there. We're still in UV mode, so as you can see, the brush is doing its best to respect the UV. There we go. Very carefully. Perfect. Yeah, I think that looks better. Let's do this one as well. Now another thing we can do is if we move this paint layer below or beneath the black layer, then it really doesn't matter that we paint over it because it's gonna override it. So you can also be a little bit more sloppy in this sort of like positions because it's just gonna be easier. And actually, since we have this paint layer here with the black mask and it's now sitting on top of everything, we can go back here and use this to paint the border. So this mask right here. Oh. Huh. Why is this not painting? There we go. The opacity was way down. So we're just gonna now paint the border here on this like upper section. And then it has this sort of like a black masks. I can see 2 on this side. They're sort of like black squares. So 2 on this side. And then it seems like 4 on this side. So it's like 1, 2, 3, oh, and 4. And of course we can paint white to like clear this and make them a little bit squarer. That seems like we lost something there. That's fine. Because this is a mask, so it's non-destructive. So we're gonna be able to do this sort of effect in a nicer way. Let's just do this final one, and I will show you how to do the little. It has like some dimples on the front here, and then we'll jump onto the final effects, which are the elements. Now you can press click and shift. I think I should have done that before, right? I forgot that we had this tool. This is very similar to Substance, and as you can see, we get this very straight lines. It looks a little bit less organic though, so you might want to bury it, have like a little bit of organic and inorganic shapes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we go. The idea is that everything looks symmetrical. Now I'm gonna add another fill layer all the way on the top here. So another fill layer. This is also gonna be a black fill layer. But one thing I'm gonna do is I don't want roughness. I do want a bump, and I'm gonna push the bump down. So this layer is gonna make it seem like things are going down, and I'm gonna then add a mask and add a black mask. So on that black mask, if I were to go back into my paint here, I will be able to now paint the little circles that we have here. So as you can see here, we can paint 1 and 2, and it looks like these guys are actually going inside, right? So 1, 2, 1, and 2. We also have a couple here, so 1, 2. So it's kind of like sculpting in this sort of like detail, and it's also gonna give us a very, very nice finish look, because this looks like this are actually going inside of the element, right? It also have this sort of like, seems to be a little bit smaller, like this sort of thing. And there we go. Look at that. So we were able to add a lot of detail. Like, again, just take a look at what we had in Maya. Like nothing, just a very clean model, but nothing. And now this. And here's the magic. So if you guys have been watching the video for 38 minutes, then you are gonna get reward, because you're gonna see something that everyone else that bailed before you missed, which are these little things right here called the how they call them? I always forget. They are called the input processor layers, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into my materials, and I'm gonna look for a dirt material. So if I look here, dirt, there's a lot of dirts here. And I'm gonna look for something that could be feasible to have on this guy. So like, I think this soil looks interesting. So I'm gonna double click to download. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add this on top of everything. This is gonna be overriding pretty much everything. So double click, and you can see that we've added, click here so that we stack it on the layer stack, and we're gonna add this element right here. Now this is a little bit too big, so let's tile this a little bit more. So 4 and 4, there we go. And now I'm gonna add a black mask, a mask fill mask, black. And on this mask, I'm gonna go to my input processor, and I'm gonna add a dirt processor. And what the dirt is going to do, as you can see here, is as I increase the intensity, there's going to be more dirt overall. And we can change the contrast, we can change the intensity, and it's going to look like this mask has been dirtied up. I'm going to sharpen this definitely, and I can change a lot of things, like the direction intensity, depending if I want a little bit more on the bottom, as you can see here, which I think I do. It looks very nice. See how we get this very nice dirt pretty much everywhere. Now I can go into the dirt, and I'm going to change the options to something like a multiply, so that we get this very dark effect, or we can do like an overlay. It's also going to get this, well, actually the overlay is kind of like pushing the colors in a different direction, so I think multiply works well. And again, if we go here into the dirt layer, we're going to be able to change how much of this dirt we actually want. At any point, we can go back here and just like lower the intensity if we feel like it's a little bit too much. But see how much different this or how much detail this layer gives to the whole thing. Like that's a very, very good, right? Like it really gives us this sort of like a damaged effect. And it's also adding a little bit of bumpiness everywhere, which I think really, really helps. Now, if we don't want the bumpiness, we can always just remove the bump and the normal, and that way we're still gonna get like the sort of grunge effect, but it's not gonna be as intense. Or you can also go here to the normal, and if we lower the contrast, it's like lowering the intensity of the normal, which might work a little bit better there. So yeah, that's the dirt layer, and we're gonna add one more. So I'm gonna add a fill layer here. It's gonna be a white layer, and I'm gonna add another mask, fill mask, fill mask. And now I'm gonna add the scratch element, which the scratch, as you can see, is gonna hit all of the high points of the element. It's gonna give me this sort of effect where the high points are gonna get a little bit more damage than the rest of the thing. And one of the very cool things is that we can actually go here into the textures, and we can look for textures like scratch textures that are gonna add a little bit more variation to the whole thing. This is something that Substance doesn't have, by the way. We have to do this sort of like manually. So for instance, if I do this scratches scuffed, and I just drag and drop this into the scratch map, you're gonna see that now the scratch map is gonna be affected by this thing right here. So if we change the intensity or the contrast, we're gonna get this sort of like scratchy effect pretty much overall. So kind of like a damage effect. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go to this guy right here. I'm gonna say this, I'll set this to not screen. I think this is multiply. No, it's not multiply. Color dodge. No, it's not color dodge. Which one was it? Lighten? Add? I think it's add. And I'm just gonna lower the opacity. So as you can see, this is gonna dirty up my mask, and at any point we can go to this fill layer, and for instance on the bump map we can bring this down, and now it's gonna look like the scratches are actually like scratching the whole surface. And again, this is all procedural. So if I go here to the scratch layer, I'm gonna be able to change the contrast of the scratches, change the intensity of how the scratches are affecting everything. So there's a lot of things that we can do here to modify this and get a more interesting result. And yeah, take a look at this. Not bad, right? Not bad for 40 minutes of full tutorial here. So that's it. If you want to export these layers, you can export them to use them somewhere else. Like you can use them in Unity, Unreal, Maya, wherever you want. You just have to go here to your scene, and on the Majoras mask bake, you can then go to the output maps and just export all. And all of these colors that we're painting in real time are going to be exported. Now let's go for a final setup. Let's just do a very cinematic final setup. So I'm going to go for this sort of effect, like from the box. If you guys remember the original Zelda box, the Majora's Mask box, we're gonna go for something like this. So I'm gonna go on this sky, lower the brightness so that we don't have as much sky going in. We do want a little bit, just not as much. And I'm gonna go up here, and let's do like a light coming from the top. So I'm gonna select this area, and I'm just gonna go, actually, something like this. There we go. There we go. So now we're gonna definitely increase the brightness. I'm going to increase the diameter here. That's going to soften the shadows so that we don't get super hard shadows. And let's decrease the brightness just a little bit like this. Let's add another rim light, like coming from the bottom here. So I'm going to add another rim light here. And this one, I'm going to definitely make it brighter, but like a different color. That's like this sort of like very cold color. There we go. Look at that. So now things are looking interesting, right? And here's the thing. I'm going to do something interesting here. I'm going to go back to my texture. And again, this is a bonus for all of you guys that have been sticking around for all of this process. So I'm gonna go to the panels here, to my layers, and remember the color layer that we painted right here. We can actually make this glow, but I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to repaint it. So it shouldn't be that much of an issue. I'm just gonna go here. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my paint layer, and I need to add a channel because right now we don't have a glow channel. So I'm gonna go here to my project maps. I'm gonna add a new map, and I'm gonna have an emissive map. So now I can turn on the emissive map on this paint layer right here. Let's turn it on. And it should load like an emissive map. There we go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna select the colors. Here now I can actually color pick. Well, actually no. Let's go to an orange color. There we go. And now we go to our brushes. We can paint. Oh, let's select, of course. So we're only working on this, guys, and we can paint. So let's just paint. Let's paint everything. That's fine. So we can paint all of the emissive right there, and on this guy right here. And then we can go to a yellow color, like what we had before. And we can paint the emissive right here. So we're gonna have a little bit more texture. That looks good. And then let's go to our green color. And we're gonna paint the green emissive right there. Great, right? And finally, I mean, this is black color, but we definitely do need to have certain areas that are not emitting light so that the contrast of the eye is a lot nicer. And there we go. So now, not only do we have the color, but the eyes are actually shining. Let's go back to our classic setup. And now we're gonna do a magic, like another magic trick. We're gonna go into our render tab and we're gonna turn on ray tracing. Because ray tracing, as you can see, will give us this very nice realistic look. I'm gonna create a camera now because we can add a couple of effects here to our camera so that we get an even nicer effect. First, I'm gonna change the field of view to something like a 90 so that the mask is a little bit flatter and we can see it more like a front view like this. We can add fog. Fog is always nice, although I think this is a little bit too much right now. Let me see. Maybe just a little bit of fog. So we get this sort of effect. The second light, I forgot to add a little bit more diameter so that the shadows, again, were a little bit softer. And I'm probably going to bring the intensity down. I just wanted like a very soft effect. And this is one of the great things about Marmoset. That as you can see, we can get a very quick result with no effort. I'm going to go to view and I'm going to turn on show guide so that we don't see the cameras or anything. And we just see our very nice Majoras masks right here. Let's increase this intensity just a bit there. I actually want to make this light a little bit warmer. Kind of like a gold hue. There we go. That looks nice. And now on the camera, the new one that we created, there's a couple of things that we can do. For instance, we can add a vignette. So this is like very like focused on the camera. That's going to darken everything around it. We can add a little bit of sharpen so the textures look a little bit, well, sharper. We can add a little bit of bloom. Bloom's really good so everything looks a little bit like magical. We can increase the contrast a little bit. Maybe a little bit more exposure. No, maybe less exposure. Depending on how we want it. A little bit more contrast. Maybe just a tad bit. There we go. And I don't recommend the grain. It looks very dirty, but if you want to add it, feel free to do so. And yeah, I mean, that's it, guys. Now, quick little bonus for everyone here. I'm going to select my camera here, my Majoras mask. I can just select the whole project. And I'm going to go into Scene, Add Object. I'm going to add a turntable. So now if I go to Animate, and I hit play, you're going to see that my Majoras mask is actually turning around. So this is your portfolio, guys. This is what you're going to be exporting. So as you can see, you don't need to be a master. Like if you're only taking our Intro to Maya course, and if you've gotten all to this point, you can do all of the models that we did, the keychain, the chessboard, like all of those models, you can actually bring them into Marmoset and texture them, render them in a very nice way so that you can present them to the world. Now there's a lot more tricks, a lot more techniques, a lot more very informative techniques inside of the course. So if after this video you're not convinced of the things that you can learn, then not sure what else I can do for you guys. But hopefully with all of this, you guys feel confident that the course that we're offering to you is very good. Sorry for all of the promotion, but you know, this is what we do. So hopefully you guys are going to take a look. Make sure to check down the description. Let us know in the comments. And remember, we have our little competition, right? If this video gets to 500 likes, I'll share this model and even this scene if you want to analyze it with you guys. I'll share the model and the scene. I'll drop a link on the next couple of videos so that you can download it. and practice as well. And if we get, or when we get to 17,000 subscribers, I'll do an animation inside of Maya with this mask so that we can get it here into Marmoset and get a very nice like intro scene. Okay, so that's it for this one, guys. Thank you very much. Hope you liked it. Let us know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye bye.